Mariners win 5-3. They take the first game of a 3-game series against those Philadelphia Phillies. They improved to 11 and 12 on the year, and they've now won 3 out of 4. Let's talk about how it happened, as this was just going to be honest with you, one of my favorite games of the year in terms of how they played. Did not start out so hot for either team, and think you have to give credit to both starting pitchers. They both pitched well. In the 5th inning, Jared Kelenic crushes a home run to center field, 424 feet, makes it 1-0. Later in that same inning, JP Crawford singles in Jose Caballero to make it 2-1. Bottom of the inning, Sosa. It's always funny saying Sosa hits a home run just because, the era that I grew up in. But Edmundo Sosa absolutely destroys a pitch. We'll talk about that in just 1 second to make it 2-1. 6th inning, Teoscar Hernandez hits a home run that leaves the ballpark in about half a second, give or take, with Eugenio Suarez on, who had doubled to make it 4-1. 6th inning, Alec Bohm grounds into a fielder's choice on a really nice play by Ty France. Should have been a double play. We can talk about that for a little bit. Make it 4-2. Jose Caballero hits a sacrifice fly to score Big Dumper, who tripled. Yep, you're reading that right. Tripled to make it 5-2. Paul Sewald does allow a run in the 9th on a Jake Cave single to make it 5-3. Okay, let's talk about some negatives real quick. And again, this was one of my favorite games they played. The top of the lineup really struggled, and I'm talking about the very top of the lineup. Julio is just a little bit off right now. Zero actual concerns about what's going on here, but he is a little off, just a little bit off. And Ty France is a lot of bit off right now. I was a little bit encouraged. His last at bat, he did drive the ball to center field, but to the very deepest part of the park. But that's the best contact I've seen from him in a little bit outside of a single that scored a couple of runs on Sunday. Like he's going through it. This was a guy who had a OPS well in the high 900 range, down to right around 776 if I'm doing the math right. Just looking here, 278, 365, 411. Now look, if that's what Ty France is, I'll take it. I'll take him in that range. It puts a lot of pressure on the middle of the order, but that's not terrible. But he has not looked good over these last few games. AJ Pollock really struggled against a guy that he should be crushing. All due respect to Bailey Falter, who pitched really well over those first 4 innings and then struggled in the 5th and the 6th. That's the type of guy that you brought him in to beat up on guys like this, and he's not doing it. He's still the best DH option, but that's darning with faint praise. That is not a compliment to him. That's an insult to all the other guys that they have right now in that position. By the way, I'm seeing right now that my internet connection is really terrible, but the video's still recording. It probably means that you're just going to see my face frozen, but hear me talking. My face is good looking, but it's not that good looking. By the way, shaved. I was going to keep the beard, but after the Kraken lost, it's like, maybe this isn't such good luck. Shaved, Kraken win. You're welcome. You're all welcome. I had nothing to do with it. Any other Matt Brash. Matt Brash was so today. Again, it wasn't like super hard contact. Did fall behind a couple of hitters. The biggest negative here is, and it has nothing to do with how I think he's going to pitch, when your infielder makes a play like Ty France does, and JP Crawford is ready to make a double play that would have really helped. In fact, I think it would have gotten him out of the inning scoreless. Wish I was better at research and could tell you that, but I think that's what would have happened. But you don't hustle to first. It's a bad look. That is a bad look, but that should be a learning experience for Matt Brash. You look at the 5.91 ERA, so much of that has to do with just horrific batting average, balls in play luck. A couple of hits, today that were probably should have been hits, but I have very little concerns about him other than the fact that if we're going to point out negatives, if we're going to do a daily show, there are going to be days where you have to point out that good players struggle. And there are going to have to be days where we are reactionary to what we see. We are literally reacting to every game. There are going to be days where it seems like I'm picking on people, and I'm absolutely not. just the way this works. We are going to have days where we are going to have to critique, for lack of a better word, bad performances. And was Brash bad pitching? No. Is it a very bad thing that he didn't make that play and cover first base? Yeah, it is. It is. And it kind of speaks to some sloppiness that we've seen over this first 1/7 of the season, is what I guess it is. All right, positives. And there's a ton for this game. Again, really, really impressed with what they did today. Marco Gonzales has looked fantastic. Now, he only gets to 2 strikeouts today. It wasn't nearly as quote unquote dominant. I'm not even going to try to put these things up because, again, my internet connection's telling me that the video probably will just be audio again. That's fine. It's an audio format. Some people have asked me if I have thought about making this a podcast. Not yet, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, no, it wasn't a supremely dominant swing and miss performance from Gonzales, but his command was really good. And even the home run he allowed to Sosa was a good pitch. Sosa just got the bat out ahead and crushed it. It's going to happen. People are going to give up home runs. You know, there are good baseball players out there, and right-handed hitters against him, if they pick up the baseball, you know, they have a chance to do damage against pitches that are not thrown extremely hard. Outside of that, I thought this was excellent, and it's been so good to see how well he's pitched since coming off the paternity list. Not just because, you know, it's great to see success for a new dad. It's also great to see because the Mariners need him not to be a fifth starter because they have a clear fifth starter. They can't have 2. Your strength of your team cannot feature 2 fifth starters. It just can't. Worth pointing out that the reason Marco Gonzales was pitching in this game was because that Logan Gilbert got moved back because he was dealing with, I believe, spasms in his scapula. It sounds like everything's going to be okay, and this is just extremely precautionary. Something to keep an eye on. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Anytime a pitcher has a start moved, you got to keep an eye on it. You just do. Hopefully everything's okay. Hopefully this is truly actually just one of those precautionary things. Sure hope it is because they cannot afford to lose Logan Gilbert. Cannot. Supposed to pitch on Wednesday. Fingers crossed. Gabe Spire, once again, you know, gives up a couple of hits, but gets a double play and gets a strikeout to end the inning. Justin Topa, once again, super efficient, very solid. Sewald does give up the run because he's doing his Jose Mesa thing. I hate saying that, but it is. It's when this guy is given a lead of a couple of runs or more, he's going to throw a lot of fastballs, and he doesn't really give a crap if you get on and score a run. He clearly is not a guy who's too worried about his ERA right now because he was throwing the ball pretty much not down the middle, but there was a lot of mediocre located pitches. Doesn't seem to bug him. And it didn't matter today because they had a 3-run lead and he got the job done. Got a couple of strikeouts when he needed it. Good stuff. And even the run he gives up was just a little blooper that got into center field. Zero concern about Paul Sewald. 0-0-0, which is nice to see because he was probably the bullpen arm that I had the most worry about is probably the wrong word, but like just he's so important for them. They really need Munoz and Sewald to be just locked down 8th, 9th inning guy. It'll be nice when Munoz come back and he's going to be starting a rehab assignment shortly, hopefully back by the end of the road trip. It'd be great to have him and move Brash into more of a 6th, 7th inning role than being the key high leverage reliever. Really important. All right. Offensively, we'll end with Jared again because we just have to. Big Dumper only gets the 1 hit today, but I thought he took some outstanding at bats. And the 1 hit was a triple that, you know, I thought might leave the park. I think he thought so too, but I give him a ton of credit because that he was hustling his you-know-what off. That's a lot of Dumper to be running, and he was running, baby. Ends up being like a stand-up triple just because it was hit so high. But, you know, that's a big run. It changes kind of how they manage the game there. Take a 5-2 lead. No longer the risk of the bloop in the blast. You need a couple bloops in a blast. It's a big difference. JP Crawford has just been playing outstanding baseball. Have to give credit where credit's due. And again, it's not like I dislike JP Crawford. It was just a position that I thought they should have upgraded. And I would have liked to have moved Crawford over to second base because I think he'd be a really good defender there. And I think the bat, especially with his on base skills, like his ability to get on, if that's your ninth hitter for your second baseman, I think you're doing okay. I think you're doing okay. Anybody else I want to talk about here? Suarez with a double. Nice to see. Caballero, I think, has more than held his own. I think he's been much better than his line suggests. Keep getting asked about if he's the option at second base. He is not. But it's great to see that he's done that job while Dylan Moore, who, if he also didn't see, it sounds like that's going to be a little bit. It does sound like Jose Caballero is going to be out for a little while. Dylan Moore is going to be out for a little while because scar tissue, which is a very bad Red Hot Chili Pepper song. Sorry, everybody. And also a horribly painful thing that is very difficult to treat, is playing a factor. And it's worth pointing out. Again, I said worth pointing out too many times in this video. It's not the hernia that has kept him out. It's the core muscle that he had surgery on. Or excuse me, it's not the oblique that has kept him out. It is the core muscle surgery that has the scar tissue. And so, he's expected to start a rehab, just got a cortisone shot. No luck. He's coming back soon. And it's a little sad how much they're relying on him. All right. Jared Kelenic. This is so fun, folks. I mean, my buddy Nathan on Mollywop Monday brought up an interesting point about how much more important do you think it is? And this is an interesting one, and it's super hypothetical. And ultimately, I think the two things don't necessarily coincide, but could. How much more important is it for Kelenic to be doing this than the Mariners playing well for the long-term health of this club? It's an interesting question. Because if you told me on February 18th, you can have the Seattle Mariners start 11-12 with a pretty significant injury to their pitching staff, two significant injuries to their pitching staff, one in the rotation, one in the bullpen. If you could have that 11-12 start with two significant injuries, but Jared Kelenic is going to be hitting 342, 395, 726 with 7 homers and like 4 stolen bases, and leading baseball in WRC plus, weighted runs created plus, leading baseball in the statistic. Would you take that trade-off? I think I would. And part of that is because I do believe this team is good enough to overcome his poor start. I'm disappointed. 11-12 is not what I was hoping for. I was hoping for something like 13-9, 14-8. Those numbers don't actually add up to what I just said. I was hoping for something like 13-10, 14-9. It's late, folks. That's what I was hoping for. But that's not what we got. And I think Kelenic is worth it. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear that that's not a good reason not to spend money for the ownership, knowing that Jared Kelenic is developing into the star that we hoped he was. That's not a good reason. It shouldn't excuse any roster moves they didn't make. It doesn't excuse that they didn't make a move for a designated hitter or an outfielder. It doesn't excuse that they didn't upgrade up the middle enough. But it is worth pointing out how important Kelenic is to this franchise. And I have to give Jerry DePoto a ton of credit because I don't know a lot, but I do know that there were organizations that were calling, that were wondering, how could we get this done? How can we make this guy our reclamation project? And good for Jerry DePoto for saying, we're not interested in that. And they shouldn't have been, because selling low on him didn't make sense. Watching him go play um, superstar baseball for another organization would have been devastating, and would have just fed into the belief that this organization is cursed. uh I mean, he just looks phenomenal. It's been so fun to watch this dude play so well. Play well is an understatement. He should have gone 4 for 4. Christian Pache makes an unbelievable diving catch to keep him from that fourth hit. But 3 for 4 with a homer is something I will sign up for. Like the understatement of understatements. Oh, it's been great. It's been great. And it has been, as a guy that some of you know, I write about prospects. It has been so I feel less insane. I feel less insane because there is no doubt in my mind. And every prospect writer has misses. I have my misses. I was absolutely infatuated with a dude named Garrett Whitley, who I thought should have been a really high draft pick, and he ended up going like 13th. Whoops. I was infatuated with Corey Ray. Infatuated. Thought he was the best player in that class. Whoops. Was infatuated with Kevin Newman. Thought he was one of the top 3 players in that class. Not so much. But Kelenic would have been easily my biggest miss. Because let's be honest, I ranked Newman and Ray and Whitley as, top 100 prospects. I probably had Ray as like a top 25 one at one point. But Jared Kelenic was number 2 or number 3 on my list for a long time. That long time being a subjective term, but that would have been easily my biggest miss, because I've never had anybody ranked that high look that terrible, not counting injury stuff. There's been pitchers that I've ranked super high who have not really lived up to the hype for reasons that have nothing to do with their baseball skill. It has to do with the fact that, I've kind of learned my lesson. Maybe don't rank pitchers so high, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. It took me a little bit longer to learn that than I would love to admit, to be honest with you. But look, I think you can find tweets out there where I have said that I like Jared Kelenic more than Julio Rodriguez, and now, not even close. And that's not an insult to Kelenic. It's just that Julio Rodriguez is legitimately one of the greatest talents in baseball. Jared Kelenic is not that yet, but he sure has played like it so far. But it's just been so nice to see. It's selfish for me. All of this is selfish. I mean, I'm this is such a selfish exercise. There's going to be, never mind. The you know what I'm trying to say, I hope. But it has just been so amazing to watch Jared Kelenic, in a small sample, look like the guy that I thought Jared Kelenic could be. And in fact, better. Much better. Tomorrow, the Mariners have the Philadelphia Phillies again, of course. It's not really nice to get off to a 1-0 start for this road trip, especially knowing you get to end it with Double-A Midland. The scheduled pitching matchup for tomorrow is Logan Gilbert against Taijuan Walker, good old former Mariner Taijuan Walker, who, may have liked a tweet that I had that was negative towards him that I thought was really funny. Could tell that story some other time, but we'll see if it's actually Gilbert pitching. Sure hope it is. Because it does sound like it was precautionary, but it's always scary when a pitcher gets bumped back. Great chance to go up 2-0. Really, the pitching matchups favor them in all of these games. Until we get to the Toronto series, where it's kind of a coin flip. But yeah, great start. Did you guys like this game as much as I did? Let me know in that old comment section. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Crawford_MILB. Please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/MLB Prospect Guides. Prospect updates every single weekday. And check out Sports Sometimes, my podcast. I am recording a new episode very soon. And hey, check out the RotoWire Baseball podcast as well. I do 1 or 2 episodes a weekend for them, and I'm going to be doing one on Thursday with my buddy Chris Towers. So that'll be a lot of fun too. So yeah, good win, and thanks for the sanity, Jared.